Happy Monday, everyone. This is Martha with Nature Niche, and happy Veterans Day. Thank you to all veterans, past and present, for their service to our country. This week, I wanted to focus on something that I'm thankful for. And as we approach Thanksgiving and with winter approaching, I look to nature and think about what is really meaningful to me just makes my day. And so I have been enjoying my white-throated sparrows immensely this October, and I thought I'd share some information and footage about them. It's been a long time since I've done a bird species focused post, and I hope this brings you some joy today. The white-throated sparrow is found year-round in the northeastern United States, and it breeds across much of Canada and the eastern half of the northern U.S. It is a short to medium distance migrant, and it can be seen during spring and fall migration across the central United States, overwintering from Michigan south to Florida and Texas, even over to the west coast of California and into northern Mexico. In the Northeast, breeding birds tend to leave in the fall and are replaced with birds that breed further north, but they're kind of present year-round. In Michigan, the Upper Peninsula and the northern half of the Lower Peninsula includes the species' breeding habitat, with the southern half of the Lower Peninsula providing overwintering habitat. Here in Midland, we're right on the border in between that breeding and overwintering habitat, and so I tend to see them and hear them most during migration periods in April and October. As far as habitat goes, white-throated sparrow prefers forested habitats across Canada in the northeastern U.S. and northern Midwest, and it uses both deciduous and coniferous woodlands, especially in openings in the canopy with low, dense vegetation, areas that are regenerating after disturbance like fire, logging, insect outbreaks, and edges where the forest meets wetland habitat like the margins of ponds, wet meadows, and bogs. This is where you'll find them during the breeding season. During migration and winter, you'll find them along the edges of woodlots, hedgerows, thickets, weedy fields with standing herbaceous vegetation, and rural and suburban backyards and parks. Mine in particular like the wildlife habitat brush piles that I created. They tend to use that for cover and then come out in the woodlot next to our house and scavenge, as you can see here, with the squirrels and other wild birds. For feed under the feeders and throughout the woodland ground cover. These sparrows are easily recognized by their crisp head and face coloration, and males and females look alike. Overall, they're a plump, large sparrow with a long tail and a relatively small bill. Their black and white crown stripes and black eye line with bright yellow spots between the eyes and bill, those are known as lores, are some of the key characteristics. Also, the neat white throat patch that is sometimes bordered by a black whisker known as a malar stripe. The rest of the face and breast is gray with a rich red-brown color and some black markings along the back and wing feathers with 2 white wing bars. Immature individuals are similar, but they have brown to blackish head stripes The yellow lores are less prominent or distinct, and there are faint streaks on the breast, but you can still look for that bright white throat patch forming on the juveniles. There is a tan striped color form where the head stripes are more tan than white, and the yellow lores are more muted and harder to observe, but you'll still see that bright white throat patch. So birds almost always mate with a bird of the opposite color form or morph. So you'll see both often. I think this species is most easily confused with the white crowned sparrow, which also has black and white head stripes and a dark eye line, but it lacks the yellow lores between the eyes and the bill, and does not have the clear white throat patch. So that's how you tell them apart. The call of this sparrow is also quite distinctive. It's described as a whistle, and it has a good mnemonic for those of you learning to bird by ear. It sounds like the bird is singing, "Oh, sweet Canada, Canada," or "Old Sam Peabody, Peabody." And I often hear them in Midland singing during April at the beginning of the breeding season, but I'll also hear them in the fall. I've had them almost the whole month of October. They've quieted down here in November. And the song's a little bit different in the fall. I think it's some of the teenage birds learning how to sing the song as well. I'll share some clips so you can hear them in the spring and fall from my woodlot. White-throated sparrows eat mostly the seeds of grasses and other herbaceous plants, including ragweed and buckwheat, and also the fruits of shrubs and vines like our native sumacs, grapes, cranberry, mountain ash, roses, blueberries, blackberries and raspberries, and dogwoods. During summer, they forage for and capture a lot of insects and arthropods on the forest floor, and they feed their nestlings almost exclusively animal matter during the nesting period. And that could include dragonflies and wasps, stink bugs, beetles, flies, caterpillars, spiders, millipedes and centipedes, and snails. During the spring, they'll eat the tender buds and blossoms and young seeds of oaks and maples, beeches and elms. And in the winter, they will readily visit bird feeders, especially those with a lot of good perching room, and more often feed beneath feeders, foraging for millet and black oil sunflower seed. Similar to some other sparrow species, white-throated sparrow tends to hop on the ground rather than walk or run. So sometimes they catch my attention just with that kind of stereotypical sparrow hop, or I call it the chicken dance movement. And they use both feet to scratch backward, looking for seeds and invertebrates amongst the ground cover and forest floor litter. They can also toss leaves to the side with flicks of their head. And during fall migration, they tend to form larger flocks. And so you'll see many of them doing the little chicken hop dance and foraging on the ground. Female white-throated sparrows build their nests usually near or on the ground in fairly level clearings in the forest with dense ground cover vegetation. So you can find nests under shrubs, grass, or ferns, sometimes last year's standing dead vegetation. So that vegetation helps to conceal the nest so that it's only visible from one side. The female will use mosses and grasses and fine roots and pine needles and deer hair for nest building. And if the nest is predated, because they are often low, they might then rebuild, or she'll rebuild a little bit higher on a fern, on a brush pile, or an upturned tree root wad, sometimes as high as 10 to 15 feet off the ground in a coniferous tree. They are not known to reuse their nest. They do have 1 to 2 broods per season, with 1 to 6 eggs in each clutch. A fun fact that I didn't know before researching this species for this post is that sometimes white-throated sparrows, although they're not closely related, they'll sometimes mate with dark-eyed juncos and produce hybrids. And these offspring will look like a dully marked white-throated sparrow with white outer tail feathers. As far as conservation goes, although white-throated sparrows are still abundant and ranked as a species of low conservation concern by Partners in Flight, the North American Breeding Bird Atlas has shown an approximately 33% decline over most of its range from 1966 to 2019. And in the US in particular, declines of about 69% during that time period. So they do migrate at night. So one threat can be them striking tall, lit buildings at night during migration and succumbing to injuries from that, as well as habitat loss and fragmentation, the loss of native species and our native insects. So be sure to check out Monday with Martha number 193 through 195. I give a lot of detail about how we can feed our wild birds with native plants and provide good habitat for them. And Monday with Martha number 102, where I talk about the effects of light pollution on migratory birds and actions we can take to minimize the adverse effects of light pollution. So I hope as you're out and about this fall and again in the spring, keep an eye and ear out for these wonderful little white-throated sparrows. And I also wanted to give special thanks to Tracy Anderson and Mike Nelson for their beautiful close-up photos they allowed me to use in this post. Take care and have a good week.